Hi, I am Naziha. Here, we sit down with parents, educators, and school leaders to have the kinds of conversations we don't have often enough. Honest, thoughtful, and sometimes challenging. We talk about what it really means to raise children today, how schools can better support families, and how we as adults can keep learning along the way. Welcome to the show. Our guest today has spent nearly 2 decades shaping minds and transforming schools, not just as a leader, but as a listener, a learner, and a believer in value based education. He's worn many hats: teacher, department head, head teacher, and now principal of one of Dubai's most dynamic schools. But beyond the title lies a man of quiet conviction, someone who believes that academic excellence means nothing without character and that faith and future readiness can walk hand in hand. So today we are going to speak with Ataullah Parkar, principal of International School of Creative Science, Nadal Sheba. And today he's going to be talking with us not only as a principal, but as a parent, a guide, and a passionate advocate for meaningful education. All those who may not know who Ataullah Parkar is, beyond the title of principal, if you would like to introduce yourself, what would you say?
Wow. Okay. In our brains, we still think we're young. So I still see myself as a university student.
You look like one, mashallah, mashallah.
But aside from that, I'm many years later after university. And, I think first and foremost, I'm a father of 4 children. My eldest being 16, going through his exams as we speak. Interesting times. And my youngest is 10. And I've got twins in between, a boy and a girl who are 14. So yeah, I'm now getting kind of into the teenage years of parenting, which is I'm learning a lot from those around me, those who've been there through the frontiers and made it on the other side, trying to learn from them, but also being able to perhaps reflect on the years that have gone by. I'm an educator, and I've always been an educator since even my university days. I used to teach. I used to even run a madrasa when I was young in my local community because I've had a real passion for, I believe that knowledge can really set people up, and I mean knowledge in the real sense. I don't mean knowledge in terms of subjects at school. I mean knowledge of the world, just empowering people with direction from the heart and calibrating their heart. You can get people to lead meaningful lives in that way. And I also believe that just those few words that you can leave somebody with can be enough to take them through their whole lives, and I believe just being around the right people, learning etiquette, learning adab, I think is really important. So that's who I am. I've been here in the UAE. This is my 9th year. I was involved in opening the school that I'm in. Very passionate about our vision and our mission in our schools. And before that, worked with both in Muslim schools in the UK. I was a head teacher there. I've taught there, and I used to work in government in the UK in the education. So I've had a lot of strategic kind of background and kind of always thinking about how can we across cities have an impact on children. More recently, I'm actually very interested in technology. I like technology a lot. But I have a lot of concerns about technology and the impact that it has on young people. So it's something which I'm constantly debating. How do we find that balance between the two and navigating that with myself as a person, because I'm battling with all those things, but also thinking about how do we prepare them for the future on one hand, but let's not lose their humanity on the other. And that's something I don't think any of us have really resolved yet.
True, that's amazing. But now you've had nearly, I would say, 20 years, close to years of experience in education itself, and you've worked with a lot of countries, multiple continents, and with so many people. What is keeping you motivated for whatever that you are doing? Your biggest motivation factor for all this time?
Yeah, like we were saying earlier on, I think having an intention, to be and a pure intention, of just having a positive impact. Because then whatever is thrown at you in terms of, and challenges have changed over time. And some will say the challenges are getting harder. Maybe we just say they're different challenges. When I first got into education, kids didn't have phones, and there certainly wasn't social media around. We're living in a very different world. I mean, 20 years is not a very long time.
True.
But how the world has changed in that time. I think always looking at a child and saying, this is a being with a heart. No matter what world they're in, the heart's the same.
Absolutely.
And that's what really keeps me motivated. I really believe in young people. When I look at what they're capable of, we recently had a TEDx talk going on in my school. I think you said a very nice comment when you saw it on our social media. And I saw these young people, the topic was about human connection. And I was so proud to see these young people. And I don't know why, but I came out surprised. I was thinking, you know what, I have so much hope in the future. Because I saw these young people really have such we had like 14, 15-year-olds. We had year 6 children, 11-year-olds who were talking so articulately from their hearts on this topic. I could see the sparkle in their parents' eyes. I had to sit at the back because I was quite emotional. I couldn't sit at the front even, right? And I was just so proud, and you think that's what really drives us, to always have hope in these young people, never have despair, and that's not from our faith, to have despair.
True. So that means like every single child that you've interacted with, you look into them as your own.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's the reason why you get emotional when you see them excel.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in our head office today, and we've got some of our students doing work experience there in the different. We've got lots of different companies and in the different departments, and I just saw my youngsters. And I was saying to one of the team there, I was saying, I've known this child since he was in year 3, and he's now in grade 12. He's in year 12 now. And they could just see I was getting quite emotional about it, because you see them as yours, and you can never see the child leave them, no matter how big, no matter how much hair they have on their faces,
True. Now, your school is, I think, one of the schools that has academic excellence rooted in faith. And I saw that in the website. And when I'm talking with you, you always intertwine faith with the academic excellence. How does this philosophy influence the students' daily experience in the school?
So when we say something is rooted in faith, we're talking about, and often faiths, they use the parable of a tree, and obviously we hear it in the Quran also. But the tree, the roots of a tree, of the oldest trees, are much bigger than the actual tree themselves. I mentioned Nia earlier on. From my understanding, Nia, its roots comes from nawa, which is actually a seed. And similarly, the word love, muhabba, the word hub also comes from seed. When we get that root right, for me, everything else follows. Academics follows.
True.
The reason that curriculum standards have been set is because students are cognitively ready to understand that thing. Okay? So if you get the environment right, they will understand it. And sometimes they'll, maybe a year later, a year earlier for each child, and that's okay, that's fine. But get that grounding right, where they are emotionally stable. They know why they are human. Okay, they know why they exist. They know about morality and how to treat people. For me, everything else falls in place. And it's kind of like, I wouldn't say trust the system, trust Allah. Get that right and leave everything else to Him. And it will fall into place.
From your point of view, since you've been juggling as a principal for all these years, juggling as an educator for all these years, do you have a definition, this is a successful student, or this is a successful teacher? Do you have a definition?
It's such a good question, because you could take it from so many angles. And I think sometimes in education, you say, well, why are we even educating? And I remember doing this exercise with teachers and saying, why did you become a teacher? And I've actually had instances where teachers come to me and say, I don't know.
Okay.
Right? Well, it must be something to do with the children, I hope, right?
Definitely.
What is it that you want them to become? And if we were to look at the curriculum, I'm talking about the standards, and you think, what is this trying to produce? Well, we may end up thinking, I'm not really sure, to be honest. So I think it's a question worth thinking very deeply about. And for me, when I see a returning student, and I've seen many of my alumni, people that I've met over the years, sometimes going back to England. I recently saw one of my students get married, and she said to me, I remember this interaction in the corridor. She's telling me all these stories, and it really kind of brought emotions. And I think, that's a successful child, who she values life, she's happy, She's smiling. Actually, I didn't think about. I've never even asked her how she did at university in her grades. I didn't even know she went to university.
Her growth as a human being.
Exactly, right? Because that's what really matters at the end of the day.
True.
If you were to get older, if you were to speak to our elders and say what really matters, yes, we want to be educated. Please, I don't want anyone to think that I don't think we should get qualifications and succeed. But that's a part of a big tapestry that we need to try and achieve for our children. We need to give them a vision of life. Why are we human and why do we even exist? True. We're here to contribute to society, to make people feel good, to open that door and see someone and say, I want to give a bottle of water, to think, actually, I'm going to store water in my house that when somebody's driving by, I'm going to give it to them. That for me is a good human being. Otherwise somebody with, achieved all the grades in the world, but it's just snobbish. For me, that if that's one of my students, I'd be quite disappointed.
Right. So creating the best human.
Best human.
That's the success.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's not being the best at anything.
Absolutely.
That's being rounded.
Yes, absolutely. Right? That's really powerful. So this best version of humans in today's busy world where we're tackling a lot of challenges at home, right? So how do you foster the patience, resilience, faith, and focus at home within your children?
As a parent, if I strive to follow all the guidance that is out there, first of all, I'm going to be very confused because you hear one saying you should be very strict, the other one saying you should be very soft, and the other one saying a mix of all the two, And if I'm watching shorts, I'm going to go even crazier because it's just quick snapshots. And parenting's not like that, is
Exactly.
it? Parenting is as much the learning process as it is for the child. And I think I've learned over time that, first of all, there's not one size fits all. I've read many parenting books. I'm not a parenting expert. I've read many education books. I'm not an expert in education. It's just we're running by experience and we're trying our best. Okay. And I think so long as we are constantly reflecting, and of course there's principles there, we don't beat our children. We try not to shout at them. We try to connect with them. We have relationships with them. Those principles are there, of course. But in terms of actually nurturing children, each child is so different. I've got 4 children. I have a different parenting style for each one of them.
I think I remember reading somewhere and I was laughing out loud. They were like, gentle parenting is for gentle kids. If you have an atom bomb at home.
Absolutely. Try it. You're gonna throw it right back at you. I remember when I first became a parent, nearly 17 years ago now. And one of my elder cousins gave me some advice, and he said, look, with the first child, you're going to take the spoon and when they've eaten, you're going to put it in the sterilizer and you're going to boil it and it's going to come out clean. For the second one, you're just going to put it under the tap, For the third one, you're going to pick it up off the floor.
He's right. He's absolutely
right.
Yes.
So you learn over time, and we're more zealous with our first child. They're not going to do this. I'm not going to expose them to X, Y, Z. And by the third child, you're like, oh my gosh, I just need to sleep. Please entertain yourself. It's a journey for each parent, and there's no one that starts as a perfect parent. And I think if we just strive to have ihsan in what we do, just keep trying, keep reviewing what worked. That conversation didn't work this time, Well, I lost it this time, and I shouldn't have done that. And guess what? That's okay. That's normal. There's nobody who has got it right first time, because you need to experiment to figure out the personality of your child. What's going to work for them, what's not, So I don't believe in one size fits all. I believe trying strategies, and we should try to learn different strategies from different places, of course. But what's going to work for that child at this point in his life, is going to change next week. And when they're going to hit puberty, they're going to, when you're 7 years old, they have more testosterone than when they're 14, boys. Okay, how do we deal with that transition, then this transition and that transition? And you've got to keep evolving, So just try different things.
I think, that really is a very valuable advice, because kids don't come with the user manual, yeah?
Absolutely.
And we get it for microwaves, but then not for kids. You have to figure it out on your own. And every single child is different. It's like their DNAs, they're different.
And imagine trying to do that in a school now.
Oh my God, yes, I do. This notion, devices, mobiles, devices, okay? Devices at home, devices at school. that has made the kids very tech savvy, right? How do you think a school and parents work together to help our kids become tech savvy efficiently, but also keeping them emotionally grounded?
Yeah. So it's I'm yet to meet anyone who has an answer to that very tough question. I think in everything is balance, isn't it? And I think schools have gone through a process when like iPads and Chromebooks and all these things became popular, maybe 10 years ago or something. To say, okay, we're going to move all our textbooks on here and everything's going to function from here. And COVID accelerated that somewhat. I think people are now pulling it back, okay, and saying this needs to be purposeful. Is it adding value? Are they spending too much time on the screen? We don't have the full answers yet because what screen time is looking at a textbook considered screen time or not? Is it affecting the cognitively or not? Are we affecting eyesight or not? We don't have that information fully yet. We are starting to get some data around this now. But certainly the trend is now, and when I speak to parents now, I recently did a consultation to my parents saying, how do you feel about children? Now, we have a policy where phones are handed in school. We don't allow them in the classroom. But even then I said to parents, how do you feel if we were to go back to brick phones?
The Nokia 3310 ones.
Do you remember those?
Oh my God. Those are phones that will last for a lifetime.
Of course.
It folds
2-week
and
battery.
It scatters to pieces, but you can reassemble and you're definite. You know that it is gonna work.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved my phones back then. We used to play Snake. That's about as hard as it went, right?
Yeah.
Nearly all of my parents' comments were, please use those phones. Okay, parents are calling out for schools to have a partnership with them, and we have to value their opinion. And they are an absolute asset. If you can get your parents on side and say, let's do this together. Okay, parents are not neglectful. They care about their children. They love their children. They want to do what's best. Okay, so let's work together as a community. And I think we can. I think schools are a part of the community. And it's our duty to engage parents. And we don't have the answers. Many of our parents have the answers. Some of them are absolute experts in what they do, in technology, in community, or people in government, people who are in senior positions. Get their views in. Help them shape your policy in your school. So I think, look, mobile phones, I think they are an absolute problem for children. And when they're unregulated, I understand there's a need for them. However we define need, different families define that in different ways. So yes, but if they're not controlled, and if we're not consciously, restricting our children, both as a parent and as schools on this, we'll fail them. And they will turn around and say, you failed us on this.
Absolutely.
They will, I promise you, they'll turn around and say that, right? Devices in the classrooms, which tend to be laptops, iPads, and those kind of things, parents are worried and educators are worried that children are losing the ability to write. Okay, I can tell you that my handwriting, and I didn't grow up with computers necessarily, but we started to use computers when I was at school. And certainly my working life as the majority, there's times in my working career I've never written. I've just been using computers. My handwriting compared to my father's handwriting, my grandfather's handwriting, it looks rubbish. They'd probably be embarrassed if they looked at it, And I'm left-handed on top of that, so it makes it even worse, and parents are even more worried now. Their children can't write coherently. They can't structure sentences. They don't know the rules. If they're using a math book, they can't write in the boxes. They can't get the place value and the columns correct. They want us to go back to traditional learning, and I respect that. So in our school, we've done that. We're not obsessed with becoming a distinguished school, in terms of devices or anything like that. We just try to use it where it's relevant, get them to know and what we want is children to be intuitive. Okay, and actually you can develop that without devices. Can they ask the next step of the question? How can I be more efficient? How can I be more creative? How can I take this to the next step? How can I be critical of this? These are skills that were there way before devices came out. Okay, so use them to your advantage, of course. They have a role to play. Again, I say I'm an advocate of technology. I love technology, but in a regulated setting. We as adults need to set the boundaries very, very clear on it.
So, as an educator, as the principal of a school, there are certain elements where you can make decisions in your school, right? But has anything that you've experienced as a parent from the school of your child has changed any of your decisions that you have taken at school?
That's a good question. Definitely, because alongside being, I was an educator before I was a parent, so I'm always going to be behind the curve. And as my own children go through certain things, whether it's exams, whether it's peer pressure, I will think about the policies that we implement in school, So I've seen my own children go through devices because they too went through COVID. And I went through COVID as a parent also. And I was running a school from the same, same place that I was being a parent during COVID, and I was watching them in one room doing their lessons while I'm trying to design the structure of the lessons in another room. I think I've particularly around devices, I've seen my own children go through that, and I watch them sometimes, and I think, what do I not want them to become? When I think people come around to my house, how do I want my children to engage with them? And then I think about my children at school. I think, how do I want them to be as adults? When they grow up, what standards do I want them to have when they're parenting? So what do I need to instill in here? And we all remember those principles that either our parents or our teachers or somebody in our story, our own life story, has said to us, and those things drive us and motivate us, right? So I think, what messages do I want to put in my children, and what message do I want to put in my extended children, my school children, and it's all about it's all about morality for me. It's all about morality. Whatever you do, make sure it's making a difference, a positive, whether that's to your family, whether that's to your wife, your spouse, your husband, your children. Make sure that you're making a difference. Okay. And I think just constantly driving that message is critical for me.
This is a confession from my side. Before I became an educator, I don't know if the terminology of me using myself as an educator is accurate or not, even though because I'm coming from the outer circle. But before I got into working with schools, before I got exposed to schools environment, when I was a parent, I'm guilty to think the entire education's responsibility of my child is of the school. And I believe that when I'm talking to my sibling the other day, okay, when the school sent an email saying, hey, look, your daughter needs a little bit of help. My brother went storming saying, I'm going to call the school tomorrow and going to ask from them, why am I paying fees for you? I had that same mentality to a larger part of my elder daughter's life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents are still having that mindset. The entire education of my child is in the shoulders of the school.
Yeah.
I don't have to be personally involved in the education of my child. Why? Because I'm paying the fees. What do you think about that as a principal and as a parent?
Yeah, children are not products, right? I.e., we're not. They're not robots. They are all going through a journey, and it's not a one-way thing where we're just transmitting knowledge to them and saying, "Okay, go sit an exam," and then go on to your next stage. No, we are actually nurturing human beings here, and that involves a two-way relationship between the children and whoever that child is interacting with, which is home, all the institutions that it's involved in, right? Society, home, school, and anywhere else that they're engaging in. And that's shaping them, and they're shaping the place that they're in, okay? Now, we have to recognize that each child's going on their journey. They're unique, and their journey is defined by all of the inputs that are influencing them, their own genetics. If we go into psychology, it's every child is born with their own temperament, and then we are just trying to nurture them into that direction. Okay, so first of all, home and school need to be aligned. There has to be a trusting relationship, and sometimes the idea of paying for education can be misinterpreted as a handover of responsibility. It's not. It cannot be. Most educators are not there because they're there for the money, right? Most educators, otherwise you'd probably work in insurance or something.
Absolutely, yes.
We're not there for that purpose. That's not.
Yes.
It's about passion, passion for the children, and it's a joint responsibility to nurture these children, right? On the flip side, particularly around academics, I think, and I've seen particularly over the last 10 years. As parents themselves becoming educated and looking back on their education and perhaps reflecting and thinking, what did I not have? They can be overzealous in terms of how they engage in their child's education. And like I was saying earlier on, I think emotionally we should all be invested in our children in the right way. As adults, not at their level. So, not like that person looked at my child in the wrong way and they come storming into school and start screaming. No, that's not going to help your child.
Definitely.
That's going to create a monster.
Correct.
They're not going to be emotionally stable if you do that. It's about taking a step back and thinking, okay, my child's going through something. How am I going to help them grow from this situation? Then how do I engage with the school? And I'm saying parents shouldn't engage with schools. They absolutely should. They should talk with the teachers, but you're in a partnership with the school. How are we going to resolve this situation? I've literally had sometimes parents in my experience coming in and saying, this girl looked at my child in this way. My child's going through trauma now, and the child's sitting there. Well, no, you just put trauma on them and doing that conversation in that way.
True.
So let's see, as we're working together on making sure that this young person is nurtured, ready for the world that they're about to face. And that world is a very complex world. And we need to collectively impart our wisdom. School doesn't have all the answers. Often you have teachers who themselves aren't married with children. They're not experts either. They may be experts in teaching the curriculum, but they need your input. And they don't know your child like you know your child. Absolutely. Right? So to have that and they'll give you insights about your child that you may not know as well. So work in partnership, but don't be kind of overzealous about, particularly about targets. Just let them be children. Children learn at different times, at different paces. Those experiences that they have are purposeful experience. Sometimes they might have an argument in the playground. We should look back and smile and say, that's got to happen. At some point in their life, they're going to have this. How am I going to get them to learn from this? And there's times where we have to intervene. If my child's getting bullied, I have to intervene. I have to be the adult and say, guys, I need you to do something more here as a school. Yeah, of course, I don't take that away. That's the right of a parent. But at the same time, those interactions that they're having, which are helping them grow as a human being, don't spoil it by putting your foot in it and saying, no, I'm the parent. Now my child needs to be protected. I'm going to escalate this to the police because somebody looked at my child in the wrong way, and that can sometimes be harmful to children when we do that.
True. And I remember having this conversation with my husband when I was enrolling the youngest. She's 4. She's starting her kindergarten. And on the very first day, she was preparing her for the school.
Yeah.
I remember telling my husband, I feel sorry for the teacher who's going to land this child because I'm sending my one. And she's going to have 25 more of the same, more or less, right? So just imagine one terrorizing the house, and then the teacher's gonna tackle 25, 26
Absolutely.
of such children.
Yeah. We've got to give it out there for teachers. They're doing an incredible job.
Absolutely, yeah. You see them tired, exhausted. For us, standing for about 3-4 hours doing a workshop, you're like, when am I going to go home? Throw everything and they're looking for the bed.
Absolutely.
But the teachers, they keep repetitively doing it. And behind the scenes of a classroom, a lot of work that takes place.
Yeah. There's best practices keep changing. The evidence keeps changing about what works for children. I think more than anything, it's building relationships. And when you meet teachers who invest the time in having discipline, I think discipline is very, very important. And we don't want to be, we don't want a class of anarchy where children can do what they want. It's important that they have routines, that they have standards, but with that you create this sacred space in the classroom where they know that you're the teacher and they have that respect for you. Okay, you teach them to speak out when something is wrong. But when you do that, you invest that time in that relationship, you find that they want to work. Your job is done, honestly. Those first few weeks as a teacher, if you can get that relationship right, you'll have them learning for the whole year. The learning is then secondary. You don't need to work on, get this done, get that done. No, you just tap them on the shoulder and say, okay, just want you to focus now. Right. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to give, when I was teaching, I rarely had to give consequences to children because I invested that time. And and still now when I see my students, they remember interactions, the fun that we used to have in the classroom whilst we were working, because they enjoyed learning. Because the point is to enjoy learning, isn't it? Right. Absolutely. We need to be. As one of my somebody I've spent some time with over the years, a chap called Idris Kamisa. He's from South Africa. He's mashallah, he's a seasoned man now, educator, and I spent a lot of time with him over the years. He used to always say to us, don't be the sage on the stage, be the guide on the side. And so what I say to my teachers is that if I was to do a heat map in your classroom, is it all going to be at the front of the classroom, or are you weaving in and out? in and out, just pushing people along in their next stage, just giving that compliment so that people can move on, just getting them to reflect on an incident that happened, an argument that they're having, just giving that bit of wisdom. Hikmah is just so important in all of this, isn't it?
Absolutely. Okay, so I have a very last question. Now, let's assume a parent is coming to you, enrolling their very first child into kindergarten. What advice would you give to them? Not as a principal, but as a fellow parent or a friend.
Yeah. I still remember when my child first went to FS1, 3 years old. Between September when they started and the following January, those few months, it was like two different human beings, because the development that they go through at that stage, like each few days has so much development in it. Children are at that age will be going through rapid development, cognitively, speech-wise, physically. We want to make sure that child feels safe going to school. So, get them excited about going to school, about the journey of going to school. Let them go. Okay, let them go. They're going to be upset the first few days. It happens. We've seen it year on year. Year on year. It takes a week or two. For a couple of parents, they don't want to just leave the corridor. Please, just go. It's okay. It'll be all right. They'll cry for 10 minutes and they'll be fine because we're going to distract them because they're children, right? We can guide them. So just let them go. Let them take their big step into their next stage of learning, which is about being amongst other children of their age. Let them learn that they can interact with other children who are not their relatives, okay? They can be focused around a particular thing, whether it's a particular toy, an activity that they're doing. Let them immerse themselves and forget, right? Which is what we all need to do as adults sometimes, isn't it? Just get that sense of flow. Let them have the opportunity to experience that. If we keep hanging over their shoulders, okay, they'll never be able to let go.
Sure.
Okay, if they keep looking back to see where mommy and daddy are, okay, they're not going to end up enjoying the experience. So just hype them up for it. Okay, say it's going to be a great experience. You can do so many fun things. And when you get there, just say, I'm going to drop you with the teacher and I'm going to go. Don't look back. Leave it in the teachers. If you get the right school with the right teachers, trust the teacher to do their job. By you hanging around, you're going to create more anxiety for your child, more anxiety for the teacher because, your child keeps looking back. Just let them go and enjoy themselves. And they will. I assure you, as an educator of many years, that they will be just fine. We all did it.
So parents needs to have control of their separation anxiety.
Yeah.
Their separation anxiety. Yeah, right.
It's a very serious thing, this anxiety that we as adults carry, because we've been through our own experiences, and trauma is a very loose word that's used these days, right? We've been through our own experiences in life, which we then project on our children. I don't want to go through the difficulties that I had to go through as a child. My parents didn't have as much money. I want to make sure that my child gets everything, and whatever that might be. I'm going to buy them the best clothes. I've got to do this, and my parents were strict. I'm going to be overly loving to my child, overly soft with them. And so we project our own thing, and we then lose balance. And that can have a really negative effect on your child. If just be balanced, so take a step back, reflect, keep a journal, say what worked, what didn't, but keep balance. Don't go to their level. Be the adult in the conversation, always.
I think a lot of parents should definitely hear this. And right off the bat, I remember one, that this specific portion, I'm going to cut it and send it to him. I'm going to tell him to see this every day in the morning. Okay, that's my brother. He has the same conversation. I'm going to give everything to my child, which I did not enjoy during my childhood. And that's very harmful. From the backstage, when we look at it, you're like, you're spoiling them.
Yeah.
And don't do that.
Our experience is what makes us who we are. And a big part of those experiences are our hardships. True. And whilst we don't want to simulate hardships for our children, you don't want to make them suffer for no reason. First of all, we don't have everything. There's very few people that have everything. We do have to be selective, and children should learn, as we did from our parents, that they can't have everything. We don't have an infinite amount of money. That we too have stresses. Not that we need to share those details with them, but they should know that money doesn't grow on trees, as the saying goes. Let them learn these things, because they need to one day be as we were in our 20s, graduating, moving to this tiny small place when you just get married, growing together, then, going to a better place and feeling proud of what you've earned. Your first car was this tiny car. It was half broken, but that's your best car, isn't it? We all look back at our first car and say, that's the best thing that I ever drove, even though it was the most rubbish car in the world.
Just now how we spoke about the 3310.
Absolutely.
That's
right?
a
You have all the
memory.
memories of these things,
Yes.
right? Even though we've got phones that are a million times better now, because we value the journey that we've been on. So let them have their own journey. Let's not try and make a silver, a gold-plated experience for them. It's not in their interest to do that.
No, without putting these guardrails, if we are going to, provide them a soft cushion, tomorrow when they grow up, become adults, and if they do not know how to navigate, don't you think those kids are going to blame us again?
They will. And children are more articulate than we were as we were children. They will say it. I speak to the teenagers in my school sometimes, and they are so in a positive way opinionated. They are talking about things that I didn't know until I was in my 20s or 30s. They have views which are so mature and well thought out, and I'm so proud of them for that. But equally, they will look back and say, well, why didn't you do that for me? Why didn't you prepare me for what is in the world is challenging, isn't it? It's a dog eat dog world out there.
Absolutely.
Let's not, and equally, and you're an expert in financial literacy, let's not kind of stress them out about this world. Let's empower them.
Correct.
Let's empower them to make wise choices. Let's empower them to be responsible. Not to say, okay, you should all invest, of your money. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Just prepare them with good morals about money,
Absolutely.
good morals about food, good morals about this, good morals about that. And that's what I think, financial literacy is actually about.
Now, for me, the reason why I wanted to do the financial literacy only for the core aspect, where Allah doesn't like wastage.
Exactly. Absolutely.
He doesn't like wastage.
Yeah,
And then he also says in the Quran, don't you think, don't open your fist too much.
Yes.
At the same time, don't
close it.
shut it tight.
What a balance, right?
What a balance.
It's incredible.
And
Absolutely.
then financial literacy is also you take care of yourself, manage,
Yes.
follow, live as per what Allah says.
Yeah.
And He's repetitively telling in the Quran, my ummah, the believer, true believer is the one who prays, the one who fasts, and the one who does acts of charity.
Yes.
So you have to keep giving.
Absolutely.
Right? So these are the values that I believe that we should put it into our children.
And not there is an obsession with money, isn't there?
True.
As if it's the end.
Yes.
That's like
the goal.
the goal. And I hear this from young people, and unfortunately, there are influencers out there, many, who are just flaunting themselves.
True.
And actually, many of the children I see, alhamdulillah, can see through it and say, I don't want to be that. And respect to the generation, they've got that intelligence. But others, they have to go through it. And often these influencers, they take the children on their own journey. So they're out there and they're saying, I've got X, Y, Z. And then they go through their own life crisis, as we all do as human beings. But you've misguided so many people.
So many people, true.
Our Prophet's son became a prophet in his 40s.
Absolutely.
Right. Why? Because that's when you've actually become a fully formed human being. Not when you're 12 and you're an influencer, born with money in your hands, So I think our children being exposed to the right people and valuing the important things in life and seeing money for what it is. Yeah, our religion is not a religion which says you shouldn't have money.
True.
Many of the companions had a lot of money, but they used it in the right way, including benefiting their own families, of course, and owning assets.
Correct.
But actually at the same time, they gave waqfs, they built wells, they fed people,
True.
And they saw that as a form of increasing their wealth, as the Quran
Absolutely.
promises us that that's what
Definitely.
would happen.
Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu's story is the best. As the best businessman, Allah's wealth has put so much barakah in him.
Yeah.
Through that, he were able to free so many
Absolutely.
companions, right? Starting from Bilal radiallahu anhu.
Absolutely.
So we wouldn't have gotten a companion as Bilal radiallahu anhu if it was not
Absolutely.
Allah didn't bless Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu,
Exactly.
right? And even as of now, while we talk, I'm going off the topic, but I really love this conversation.
Yeah.
We still have the waqf that was created by Umar radiallahu anhu
Yes.
during that time.
That's
the waqf
right.
is still
Yeah,
there,
incredible, isn't it?
benefiting millions
Absolutely.
of people.
Absolutely incredible.
So, right, Alhamdulillah. But Ataullah, thank you so much. You have no idea how valuable this conversation is and the information that you actually gave to the parents. I think
you.
they had to hear this from you. Maybe this is the reason why Allah put us in this position.
Absolutely.
He's the best of the plan, and
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah.
Absolutely.
So we wanted this information to be passed across to our parents. Thank you so
Thank you
much
very much.
from the
We have to
bottom
keep
of my
talking.
heart. Yes.
We have to keep talking, and we're all going through the same challenges. Nobody's got it perfect. We keep talking, inshallah. We help each other through raising a generation that's going to keep evolving with different challenges. So, inshallah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for coming. So, right.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back soon with more real conversation about education, parenting, and everything in between. Catch you on the next one.